9 spine-chilling and sinister horrors revealed, terrifying true tales from Appalachia's deep woods. The trees loomed like ancient giants, their twisted roots snaking into the earth, whispering secrets only the unwary dared disturb. On the outskirts of their sleepy Appalachian town, Sarah and her 3 children ventured into the dense woods, where sunlight struggled to pierce through the gnarled branches above. The air was thick, and an unsettling silence wrapped around them like a shroud. It was a Saturday, a day meant for smiles and laughter, yet Sarah felt a tight knot of dread form in her stomach as her kids laughed, blissfully unaware of the darkness that hovered just beyond the tree line. As they wandered deeper into the thicket, curiosity overcame Sarah's exhaustion. They stumbled upon a dilapidated cabin, its doors creaking eerily as they pushed them open. A strange chill washed over her, a memory of old tales told by wide-eyed children on dark nights. "Don't wander too far," she whispered, but her kids sprinted to explore, their giggles echoing in the damp air. Heart pounding, Sarah stepped inside. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light, illuminating forgotten corners of the cabin, but it was the book on the table that caught her eye. Its cover was cracked and faded, gripping her with an unsettling allure. She flipped it open, revealing tales of the Whistler, a sinister being that prowled the night. Her breath caught in her throat as she read about children snatched from their warm beds, leaving behind nothing but the echo of a haunting tune. Each word dripped with a foreboding she couldn't shake off. The stories burrowed deep in her heart, awakening fears she fought hard to suppress, fears of inadequacy, of failing to protect her children in a world that judged her every step. As shadows crept in and the sun dipped below the horizon, the atmosphere shifted. A whistle floated through the air, faint yet distinct. Panic flared in her chest. It was a sound she knew too well. The whistle of their late father, a melody that wrapped around her mind like a vice. The kids, laughing still, didn't hear it, yet Sarah felt it deep in her bones, a warning, a promise of something dreadfully close. She glanced back, every rustle in the underbrush sending chills down her spine. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But when morning light broke, horror struck. Jack, her eldest, was gone. Sarah's heart raced, desperation clawing at her throat as she called his name, each echo mocking her. The laughter of her younger children felt distant now, overshadowed by her spiraling terror. What if she was the mother who let her child become another ghost story? She sprinted to the local authorities, but their dismissive attitude stung as they brushed her off, just like the townsfolk had done for years. As the day dragged on, the edges of Sarah's mind frayed. Whispers on the wind haunted her. Every glance from an old neighbor turned her blood cold, even those once trusted felt like specters. As night shrouded the woods again, Sarah found herself at the edge of those ancient trees, eyes wide as she stumbled upon a gathering of townsfolk. Their soft chanting faded into that eerie whistle, a damning sound that felt alive with malevolence. Fear gripped her heart, the cool air thick with betrayal. Who could she trust to save her son before it was too late? As they chanted, shadows flickered to life around her. The real horror was just beginning to unfold. The chanting swelled, vibrating through the air, a dark hymn that called to something deep within the woods. Shadows danced on the periphery of Sarah's vision, swaying in time with the rhythm of the townsfolk's voices. She felt an instinctive pull to retreat, to run back to the safety of her car, but terror rooted her to the spot. Jack was still missing, and she couldn't leave without him. "Please!" she cried, the desperation in her voice cutting through the eerie melody. "Where's my son?" No one turned, their faces obscured in the dim light. The whistle pierced the night again, echoing off the trees and sending chills skittering down her spine. It was closer this time, its haunting timbre entwining with the chant. She had to do something. With every fiber of her being, Sarah fought against the primal urge to flee and took a hesitant step toward the group. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was old Mrs. Fletcher, her face a tapestry of wrinkles and age. She had always been a fixture in the town, but she looked different now, eyes wide and gleaming with an unsettling light. "You shouldn't be here, Sarah," she said, voice thin and quivering, yet somehow carrying an eerie authority. "The woods are angry." "Angry? My son is missing!" Sarah shouted, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and fury. "You need to help me." Mrs. Fletcher's gaze darted to the chanting crowd, then back to Sarah. "What is lost in these woods can only be reclaimed through the whispers of the old ways. You must understand." The chant rose in intensity, drowning out Mrs. Fletcher's words. Shadows swirled, and Sarah could feel them inching closer, pressing against her skin like a damp fog. Panic unfurled in her chest as she realized that the townsfolk were no longer just people, they were vessels of the forest's dark spirit. A movement caught her eye. One of the children, a small girl, had broken away from the group, her dark hair wild around her head. The girl's face was blank, eyes glossed over like she wasn't really there. "Help me," she murmured, voice barely above a whisper before she turned and walked deeper into the woods as if drawn by an unseen force. "No. Wait." Sarah called out, but the girl did not respond. The crowd continued their chanting, oblivious to the disturbance. With her heart pounding, Sarah sprinted after the small figure. She pushed through the branches, brambles clawing at her arms. "Jack! Where are you?" she shouted, the name falling from her lips like a prayer. The deeper she delved into the thicket, the faster the world around her blurred. A glimmer caught her eye, a flash of movement. There, in a clearing strewn with dark shadows, stood Jack. He was staring at the sky, a frozen grin plastered on his face. The whistle swelled in volume, echoing off the trees like a call to the wild. "Jack!" Sarah cried, panic choking her throat. She reached out, but a dark shape swooped between them, cloaked in shadow. It grew larger, shifting into the vague outline of a figure, faceless but vaguely human. "Your son belongs to the Whistler now," the shape rasped, voice slithering around her, thick with malevolence. "No. Not my son!" Sarah screamed, tears blurring her vision. But the chant had taken hold of her. The air buzzed with urgency, the urge to join the chorus rising like bile in her throat. "Fight it," she whispered to herself, gripping her own wrists, but it was too late. The shadows beckoned, entwining around her like vines. What if she couldn't save him? A dark laughter echoed, almost delighting in her despair. As the Whistler's figure neared, the night seemed to pulse with ancient horrors waking from long slumber. Shadows wrapped tighter, and the choice was unfolding before her. Would she surrender or fight back? But somewhere within the darkness, Jack's voice pierced through. "Mommy, help me!" There it was again, the haunting whistle echoed through the trees, almost mocking her plight. What could she possibly do, standing alone before the darkness? "Fight!" she thought desperately, but as the shadows closed in, with a flicker of movement to her side, everything spiraled into chaos. The final moment loomed. Would she embrace the darkness to save her son, or risk everything to break free? The shadows tightened around Sarah, pulsating with a life of their own, whispering promises of despair and surrender. The figure of the Whistler loomed larger, its presence suffocating, thickening the air. "Join us," it hissed, and the chant surged like a wave, drowning her in a torrent of forgotten horrors. "Jack!" she screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the darkness. She felt the weight of something ancient and sinister weighing down on her heart, as if the very essence of the woods was recognizing her, a trespasser daring to interfere. Suddenly, a sharp tug pulled at her consciousness, a low growl echoing from the depths of the trees. A creature, grotesque yet shadowed in mystery, crashed through the underbrush, skidding to a halt before her. Its form flickered in and out of focus, merging with the darkness, eyes shining like twin lanterns in the night. It snarled, baring teeth like jagged stones, and for a moment, Sarah felt a surge of hope. Could this beast be a friend, perhaps a protector against whatever lay ahead? The figure of the whistler turned, surprise flickering across its formless face. You dare challenge the whistler? It roared, the sound reverberating around them, as the trees seemed to shake. The beast growled in response, its eyes narrowing, as if weighing the odds. Run! Sarah told herself. You can't fight this. But her feet felt like they were glued to the ground, terror clawing at her as her son's voice turned from a distant plea into a nightmarish echo. Mommy, help me! The more she struggled, the more the darkness tightened its embrace. With a sudden rush, the creature lunged forward. It tackled the whistler, dark tendrils flailing in the air, twisting and twisting. The air crackled with electric tension, crackling like a fire igniting in the storm. Go! The beast barked, the words piercing the chaos like a lifeline. Sarah hesitated, her heart racing. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but another part clawed deeper, fighting through the suffocating despair. She took a slow step back towards where Jack stood, eyes glazed over with a glaze that felt both innocent and haunting. Jack! She cried again, her voice raw. I'm here. Fight it. The chant shifted. The townsfolk's voices broke, curling around Jack like a serpent, trying to pull him into their grasp. The smile on his face flickered then dimmed, uncertainty shadowing his features for just a fleeting second. Mommy? He whispered, a crack appearing in the nightmare, just enough light for hope. The whistler howled in outrage, twisting to regain control as its dark arms reached for Jack, but the creature held it at bay, their forms locked in a dance of chaos and terror. Now! It growled, urging her forward. With every ounce of strength, Sarah tore through the shadows. She rushed toward her son, the air thrumming with desperation. The shadows whipped around her, clawing at her skin, biting like icy wind. You have to fight, Jack. Come back to me. As she stumbled closer, panic ignited as she saw her son's grin fade completely. Mommy, help me! This time, it was not just a plea, but a desperate cry for rescue, filled with terror. In that heartbeat, amidst the roar of the whistler's rage and the growls of the creature battling it, the woods shifted. The trees leaned in, branches twisting and curling, as if trying to grasp at the frantic scene. Sarah reached for Jack, outstretching her fingers, but the shadows pulled back as if testing her resolve. Was it too late? Had she waited too long? The woods were alive, teetering on the brink of chaos, the essence of darkness swirling endlessly around them. Fight, Jack. Look at me. She let the fear flow through her, turning it into strength. But before she could grasp his hand, the air around them felt charged, thicker than ever, and a sharp whistle sliced through the void. In one swift moment, the world went dark, and just like that, everything went silent. As she stood on the precipice of unending shadows, uncertainty clawing at her heart, somewhere deep inside, a chilling realization settled in. What if Jack was no longer just lost but had become part of the very darkness she fought against? The silence pressed down on Sarah like a heavy fog. It was suffocating. The stillness was too complete, too unsettling. She blinked against the oppressive dark, hoping to catch a glimpse of Jack, but nothing was there. Only shadows surged around her, curling and coiling like unseen serpents. Jack! She shouted again, her voice echoing into the void, but it was a whisper swallowed by the dark. Panic stabbed at her chest. Had she lost him entirely? Then came a low rumble, vibrating from the ground beneath her feet. It filled the air, rolling like thunder from a storm long past. The whispers returned, and this time they urged her, beckoning her deeper into the heart of the woods. Sarah, join us, they hissed, the voices a twisted harmony that chilled her bones. All will be revealed, join us. Her heart raced. She could feel the weight of their gaze, pressing on her, testing her resolve. She knew she should run. She wanted to run. But the pull, the magnetic force of the shadows, seemed to anchor her in place. Then she remembered the creature, the beast that had tried to save her. Could it still be battling the whistler? Would it distract the dark entity long enough for her to escape? She swallowed hard and stumbled back, forcing her legs to heed her summons to move. Each step felt like wading through thick mud. The sounds of the chorus grew louder, swirling in a cacophony that threatened to drag her back into the depths of despair. "Help me!" Jack's voice pierced through the din. It was clearer now, more desperate. "Mommy! Help! Jack!" Her voice broke, raw and scared. A flicker of light danced in the dark, outlining a figure. There he was, his small silhouette encased in shadow, a glowing orb of hope amidst the darkness. Rushing toward him, she extended her arms. "I'm coming. Hold on." But as she reached his side, she felt the darkness shift. The air crackled with an unnatural energy. Jack stood there, but something was wrong. His eyes, once bright and full of innocence, now flickered with an eerie glow. His sweet face twisted into an expression that made her stomach churn. "Mommy?" he echoed, but there was something twisted in his tone. It was as if the woods had drawn him in, reshaping him into a reflection of the horror surrounding them. "No. No. Jack, don't you see me?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. The whispers wrapped around her, growing stronger, urging her to succumb. "Fight it, Jack. It's not you." Suddenly, the shadows surged, as if responding to her despair. The Whistler's silhouette rose beside them, looming high above, its voice a sinister melody. "He is ours now. The darkness nurtures. Embrace it, little one." Despair twisted in Sarah's gut. "He is not yours." She screamed, but her words felt feeble against the insidious chant. Jack's expression flickered, a moment of clarity breaking through. "Mommy, I don't want to." But the darkness seized him, pulling tighter, the tendrils curling around his small body, drawing him away from her grasp. Sarah lunged forward. She grasped his hand, feeling the clammy chill of darkness wrap around her like a death grip. In that moment, she felt the weight of the world utterly crashing down on her. "No!" she roared, her heart racing. "Fight! You can fight it, Jack." But the sinister laughter of the Whistler echoed through the night. The woods breathed, their breath hot and suffocating, as they merged with the shadows, completely engulfing her son. With a jolt, the world around her shifted again. The light dimmed further, a gaping maw of dark ready to consume her whole. In the last heartbeat before those shadows overtook her, as desperation clawed at her insides, Sarah realized, what if the darkness was just trying to claim Jack, but had cast its greedy net over the entire world, and just like that, the darkness closed in. Then everything went cold. In that chilling stillness, she felt a new whisper rise, an echo from the depths. "All has been chosen now, it's your turn." In that moment, a question surged within her. How could she ever escape the very shadows she once thought she controlled? The cold pinpricks of darkness surrounded Sarah, suffocating her thoughts with a vice-like grip. She struggled to breathe, the air turning thick like blood as panic rushed in waves. "Jack!" The name slipped from her lips, barely a breath this time, a plea swallowed by the insatiable void. The shadows pulsed and danced around her, mocking her desperation. The whispers grew louder, relentless and rhythmic. "Sarah, join us." They flowed like water, slick and slippery, seeping into her mind. "Join us and rest. All is darkness. All is peace." She wanted to scream but was frozen, caught between the horrors enveloping her and the faintest flicker of hope pulsating in the distance. Memories of Jack flashed through her mind, his laughter, the way his eyes sparkled when he played in the sun. "Jack!" She called again, begging for a response. A chill gripped her heart. What if the darkness had swallowed him whole? Thoughts twisted inside her head, gnawing at her sanity as if they fed off her fear. But then, there it was again, the soft echo of Jack's voice, muddled but unmistakably close. "Mommy, help Jack." Desperation resounded in her plea. With every ounce of strength she could muster, she propelled herself forward, each step weighed down by the oppressive gloom. The ground began to tremble beneath her. The shadows snarled as if alive, shifting and pulsating in rhythm with her heartbeat. Come to us, they called, seductive and taunting. Embrace the dark, not my boy. She howled defiantly, forcing herself to push deeper into the dark haze. She focused on Jack's glowing essence, a beacon against the encroaching tide. The deeper she ventured, the more intense the feelings of dread clutched at her throat. Suddenly, the light flickered. Jack's figure wavered, eyes bright with a desperation that mirrored her own. But he was trapped. Dark tendrils coiled around him, pulling him back into the shadows. Mommy! It hurts. A guttural gasp tore through Sarah. She could see it now, the claws of the Whistler, dragging at Jack's small frame, squeezing light from him. Let him go. She shouted, rage igniting her veins. The air crackled, a storm building within her. Why fight? The Whistler's voice sliced through the air, a smooth, deadly whisper. Accept it. Embrace the shadows. You could be so much more, you and the boy know. Sarah's heart raced. She felt a surge of power pushing through her, deep and ancient. I will not let you take him. Her surroundings trembled with her resolve. She had to break the dark's hold on her son. She could almost feel the threads of light connecting them, but one wrong move could sever it forever. Fingers trembling, she reached out to Jack, desperate to bridge the gap. The shadows wrapped around her wrist, icy and unyielding, threatening to pull her further into the abyss. Sarah, join us. The voices sank deeper into her consciousness, seductive and hypnotic. They promised freedom, escape from the pain. You belong to us. With every ounce of willpower, she pushed against their siren call. As if responding, Jack's eyes flickered again, something fighting to break through the haze. Mommy, I don't know how. Sarah felt her heart clench, choking on the realization. You can do it, Jack. Fight. Remember the sunlight. Remember us. The darkness surged, quickly closing in. She could feel its grasp tightening around her throat. Shadows shrieked, furious at her defiance, as if they might tear her apart. Then, in that fractured moment, something primal surged inside her, a gut instinct born from the oldest forms of terror and love. Do you hear me, Jack? You are stronger than it. But the shadows shrieked louder. The darkness roared, and a new sound pierced through. The laughter of children mingled with the growling of the Whistler, a grotesque symphony of innocence corrupted. She gripped Jack's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of his small fingers battling the numbing chill of despair. But the shadows were relentless. The weight of despair crashed over her, sending tremors through her body. The darkness thrashed wildly, seeking to reclaim what it desired, while she felt Jack waver in her grasp. And then, the whisper came again, clear as day, you cannot escape your choices, Sarah. You chose this path and it leads to nowhere. The glowing light that was Jack wavered, flickered, and for just a heartbeat, she thought she saw clarity in his eyes, the tiniest glimmer of hope fighting back against the dark. But would it be enough to break free? And in that moment, she felt the shadows tighten their grip, dragging them both deeper into the void. A haunting thought lingered. What if the light of hope was merely a flicker against a tide that could not be quelled? The shadows clawed at Sarah, pulling her and Jack further into a suffocating grip. The air grew thick, a miasma of despair swirling around them. She could feel Jack's warmth flickering like a dying candlelight, desperately pushing back against the consuming darkness. Hold on, baby, don't let go. Her voice sliced through the howling wind, trembling with fear and defiance. The Whistler's laughter rang out, a cruel symphony echoing against the despair that enveloped them. Mommy. Jack's voice quivered, tinted with terror, as tendrils of shadow attempted to wrap around his tiny throat. A rush of cold terror crashed over Sarah, flooding her veins with adrenaline. She squeezed Jack's hand tighter, her heart pounding in her chest like a hammer against iron. Fight it. We're almost there. She shouted, searching for the flicker of light within the suffocating shadows. But the Whistler's voice came again, low and taunting, resonating deep within her core. Don't you see? You can never win. This is where you belong, with us. The shadows pulsated, seeping into her consciousness, threatening to drown her hopes in a torrent of despair. Visions of dark, twisted forests danced before her eyes, each whisper weaving a tapestry of sins unforgotten and moments lost. Blood-stained memories clawed at her mind, amplifying the dread that loomed over her. "No!" she cried out, shaking her head. "You don't own me. You don't own him." Suddenly, a fierce wind surged from within her. The storm of her love for Jack ignited an explosive force that flared against the encroaching dark. "Remember our hikes, Jack? The green leaves, the trails that danced with sunlight? You're my boy. You're stronger than this." Her words cut through the gloom, piercing the veil of shadows that sought to smother their bond. Jack's light flickered again, sparking with the flame of determination. "I want to let go, Mommy. I promise." But as she reached for him, the darkness writhed and twisted like a serpent, tightening its grip around her heart. Each pulse felt like an eternity, and the shadows shrieked in anger, swirling angrily, sensing her defiance. "Sarah," the whistler hissed, its voice a sultry caress that sent shivers down her spine. "This path leads to nothing but pain. Are you willing to sacrifice everything?" A wave of uncertainty washed over her. A shudder crawled up her spine as stabs of doubt inched into her heart. Could she truly break free? Was hope just a cruel illusion crafted by the dark? "Mommy, I can't breathe," Jack gasped. Panic flooded her as she fought to hold on to the fading light of her son's essence. "Stay with me, Jack. Focus. Remember the river," she urged, desperately hoping to unearth the joy amidst the horror. "Remember the sound of the water, the way it feels. You have to fight for it." Together he whispered, his voice barely cutting through the suffocating shadows. The very fabric of the dark quivered. With a surge, Sarah unleashed every ounce of love she held for Jack, channeling it into a fierce light that pushed against the encroaching night. "Now! Together!" she screamed, pulling Jack toward her with all the strength she had left. The moment their fingers touched, a blinding light erupted, forcing the shadows to recoil. The whistler's screams echoed violently, a cacophony of rage and fear. But just as the hope surged, a single thought flooded into her mind: what if this was just the beginning? What if they could never escape? "Run!" Jack shouted, their bond igniting with sudden intensity, casting away the darkness that had swallowed them alive. But in the distance, she heard the cold whisper of the whistler. "You cannot escape the darkness forever. I will be waiting." They plunged forward, but at what cost? As the shadows writhed behind them, Sarah felt a chilling certainty: this fight was only starting. What awaited them in the light? Would it be brighter or just another veil of darkness? As they pulled away, a haunting laugh echoed through the night, a sound that made her blood run cold. The whistler was not done yet. Light surrounded them, but it felt fragile, like glass barely holding back the dark. Sarah and Jack's feet moved urgently against the forest floor, every step echoing terror and desperation. The taunting laughter of the whistler faded, but its presence loomed at the edges of their minds, like a predator waiting in the shadows. "Where are we?" Jack's voice trembled, his little body quaking beside her. All around them, trees twisted into grotesque shapes, their branches clawing at the air as if they too wished to ensnare them. "I don't know, sweetheart," Sarah replied, straining to keep her voice steady. "But keep your eyes on me. We'll find our way out. We have to." Fear flickered in Jack's eyes. What if it comes back? Panic surged through her as the vision of the shadowy figure crossed her mind, the whistler, with its hollow eyes and bone-chilling grin. "It won't. Not if we stick together." But deep down, Sarah felt the weight of her vow. They were running blind, without knowing if escaping the dark just meant stepping into another nightmare. The forest around them felt alive, the wind whispering treacherous secrets only the trees understood. A chill ran down her spine as every rustle in the underbrush heightened her dread. Jack squeezed her hand, sensing her turmoil and feeding off her fear. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shifted. Sarah stumbled slightly, a crack slicing through the earth. It felt as if the very foundation of their sanity was fracturing. Instinctively, she pulled Jack closer, her heart racing. "Mommy, what is happening?" Jack looked up at her, wide-eyed, brimming with innocent dread. "Just keep moving, Jack. We have to keep moving." But her confidence wavered as she glanced behind them. The shadows still gathered, thickening, roiling like a tempest. They pressed onward, but as the air grew heavier, reality distorted. Faces emerged in the bark of the trees, twisted expressions of anguish gazing at them with hollow eyes. Fear surged anew. "Can you see them?" Sarah whispered, her breath hitching. I don't want to see." "Mommy, please." Jack's voice cracked, trembling with a depth of terror that threatened to choke her. "It's okay, baby. They can't hurt us." But as she spoke, a piercing scream ricocheted through the woods. It wasn't Jack's voice. It was something warped, caught between fury and despair. "Run!" she screamed, urgency driving her. They sprinted down the path, her heart pounding in sync with the sound of Jack's tiny feet behind her. But the trees seemed to close in, branches curving low, almost reaching for them. Shadows twisted, distorting her vision. The laughter returned, rich and deep. "Did you really think you could escape me?" The voice coiled around them, seducing the air with sinister promises. "Go, go," Sarah urged, fear fueling her limbs, but the forest seemed to shift. Roots coiled at their feet, trying to trip them, and jagged rocks jutted from the ground like grasping hands. The light flickered again, dimming like a candle fighting against the dark. "There." Jack pointed, his voice filled with a mix of hope and terror, indicating a break in the trees before them. A sliver of sunlight pierced through the canopy, illuminating a patch of ground, but just as they reached it, a ripping darkness surged forth, enveloping the light. The world around them disintegrated as the whistler screamed, furious and insatiable. "This is not the end. I will have you." Time stretched into an unbearable moment filled with chaos and despair. The brightness turned to ashes as shadows surged back, clawing at them with icy fingers. Sarah felt the light slipping from her grasp, and panic like an electric storm pulsed through her heart. "Mommy! Don't let go!" Jack's scream rang out, stretched thin with desperation. Frozen, Sarah could only watch as the shadows unfurled, threatening to swallow everything whole. They were not safe anywhere. The whispers circled around them, growing louder, intertwining with the whistler's laugh. Hope settled like a shroud heavy on her chest. They had to make a choice: the light ahead or the darkness that threatened to consume them. With trembling resolve, she clenched Jack's hand tighter. Together. But the struggle was far from over. Above them, the forest laughed, a sinister crop of shadows dancing, snaking towards their very souls. What lay beyond that flicker of light? Was it salvation, or simply another trap? Could love truly break the chains of darkness, or was it merely fool's hope? The pathway ahead twisted and turned, an unwelcome labyrinth. Would they find their way, or was this darkness destined to clutch them tighter? The shadows surged, and Sarah felt the chill of dread clawing at her skin. The brightness had vanished, leaving only a thick darkness that pulsed with malevolence. With Jack's hand gripped tightly in hers, she summoned every ounce of courage. They moved forward, step by step, the forest whispering secrets that threatened to drown them in despair. "Where are we going, Mommy?" Jack's voice was a fragile thread, nearly lost in the dense air. "Just keep walking. We'll find a way." But uncertainty gnawed at Sarah. Each crackle of leaves felt like a warning. The vibrant light had been snatched away, and even the trees seemed to close ranks, their gnarled branches leaning in, eager to entrap them. Suddenly, a distant sound pierced the murmur of the forest. A low, guttural growl, like the sound of an animal suffering a gruesome fate. Jack froze beside her, eyes wide with terror. "Mommy, what is that?" "I don't know, but we need to move." She felt the weight of those hollow eyes watching them from the trees. She couldn't shake the thought that whatever made that noise was only waiting for the right moment to strike. The ground turned uneven beneath their feet, twisted roots snaking in unpredictable patterns. Sarah tried to avoid the worst of it, tugging Jack along, when they tripped over something hard and unyielding hidden in the underbrush. Stumbling, they fell onto the damp ground. As they picked themselves up, Jack's breath came in shaky gasps. "What's that?" He pointed to a half-buried stone in the earth. Pulling it free, Sarah recoiled at the faint, chilling carvings etched into its surface, faces twisted in torment, each more horrifying than the last. "Put it down, Jack. We have to go." But before they could leave, the stone began to pulse faintly, a heartbeat echoing through the ground. The laughter returned, this time lower and deeper, infused with a cruel delight. "Fools! You are not the first to tread this cursed ground," a voice echoed, dark and mocking, resonating through the air like the sound of rusted metal. "You will join them soon, forever lost." Panic gripped Sarah harder than before. She grabbed Jack's hand, desperately pulling him away from the stone, but the ground trembled beneath them, a thrumming dissonance that seemed to resonate with the laughter. "What's happening?" Jack cried out, clutching her tighter. "I don't know. Just run." They ran, the dark forest morphing around them. The great trees loomed like sentinels, their branches now reaching out, grabbing at her clothes, clawing at her skin. Sarah felt the stinging cold of something brushing against her neck, something intangible but very real. She couldn't look back. They had to escape the nightmare that closing in on them. After what felt like hours, they stumbled into an opening, a clearing bathed in a sickly yellow glow. It pulsated with a life of its own, and at the center of the clearing stood an ancient well, its stone walls slick with moisture and decay. "Don't go near it," Sarah shouted as Jack took a tentative step. He hesitated, glancing back at her, confusion rooting him in place. But all around, whispers rose like the fog, swirling around them, promising freedom but only if they would just take that final step. "Mommy, what if it can help us?" Jack's gaze was drawn in by the well's eerie light, his innocence a sharp contrast to the horror surrounding them. "Jack, you can't trust it. Please, don't." But it was too late. Jack stepped closer and the ground shook violently, a tremor that rumbled through Sarah's soul. Dark tendrils reached out from the well, latching onto Jack's arms, pulling him toward its gaping maw. Sarah lunged forward, but shadows enveloped her. "Mommy! Help!" Jack's scream sent shivers up her spine, a hideous echo in the grip of the darkness. "No!" she cried out, grasping for him as chaos danced around her. In that moment of desperate panic, shadows clawed at the edges of her vision, whispers drowning out her thoughts. The whistler's laughter filled the air, rich with victory. Did they even stand a chance? But something in the depths of her heart ignited. With a flicker of defiance. If there was a way out of this darkness, she would find it. She had to. As she struggled against the shadowy tendrils, a faint challenge formed in her mind. What if the well held not just terror, but the key to saving her son? With one final scream of resolve, Sarah lunged toward the well, teeth gritted against the inevitable. Could desperation open a door to salvation, or would it lead them deeper into the dark abyss? The darkness swallowed her whole as she dove forward, heart pounding like a war drum. Sarah's world narrowed to the frantic tug of Jack's small body being pulled away, and she could feel time slipping like sand through her fingers. "No!" The word cracked through the air, desperation fueling her movement. She reached for him, fingertips just brushing against the fabric of his coat. The shadows around her flickered and twisted. Tendrils like icy fingers lashed out, snagging her wrist, but she fought against them with a ferocity she didn't know she possessed. "Jack!" she screamed, anger mingling with fear, a primal scream in the face of terror. The shadows recoiled slightly, whispers turning into deafening roars, as if they were offended by her defiance. It should have terrified her, yet something deeper ignited within her. With a fierce tug, she pulled Jack towards her, focusing on nothing but the warmth of his small hand. The moment they connected, the shadows shrieked, thrumming like an enraged beast. Jack's terrified face blossomed in the flickering light of the well, his eyes wide as he stumbled toward her, nearly falling over once more. "Mommy, what is happening?" His voice trembled, the innocence in it a stark contrast to the horror surrounding them. "Stay close to me," Sarah yelled, her voice rough with fear. But even as she ordered him, they both felt that the well pulsed, an ominous heartbeat, a siren's call that lured with promises of safety. "Look!" Jack pointed with a mixture of awe and horror. The structure, ancient and sinister, glowed with a malevolent light, etching memories into its slick surfaces, memories of despair, of souls lost to it. Yet, it beckoned, whispering grotesque sweet nothings into the air. What if it can save us?" Jack's wide eyes flickered with a glimmer of hope that cut through the dread. But before she could respond, the whispers intensified, a cacophony of voices slithering into Sarah's mind, promising power, freedom, and reunions with those long gone. "No, Jack. We can't trust it. We have to get out of here." The shadows writhed, feeding off the conflict within her. She could see them, dark shapes pulling at the edges of her mind, warming her heart with twisted thoughts. The ground began to tremble again, shaking like an earthquake, the darkness swirling into a maelstrom of confusion. Sarah yanked Jack closer, and they both stumbled back, the edges of the clearing pushing them back, almost as if the forest itself was now rejecting them. "Mommy!" Jack whimpered. The shadows hissed, recognizing their fear and feeding off it. In that moment, Sarah caught a glimpse of something, an obsidian reflection in the surface of the well, shifting, twisting into the visage of her mother, trapped in an eternal scream. "Help me," the figure implored, the sound heavy with loss. It was powerful, a connection so personal that her heart ached. "Jack, don't look." But he was mesmerized, staring at the flickering image, a lie crafted to ensnare them both. "Mommy, I can help." He started to step forward again, back into the light. "No." Adrenaline surged. Sarah lunged again, panic propelling her toward him, positioning her body between Jack and the well. The shadows screamed louder, overwhelming her senses, drowning her thoughts in terror. Just as she closed the distance, tendrils darted out with vicious speed, wrapping tightly around her ankles, carnivorous vines ready to consume them both. "Hold on to me, Jack." She fought against the tightening grip, each pulse of the darkness threatening to drag her under. "Mommy!" Jack screamed, reaching for her. "Together." She willed her voice to be steady. "On my count, run." A heartbeat passed in silence. Then 1, 2, 3. With a surge that felt unworldly, they tore free together, the connection forging into a fierce bond. They ran, the shadows chasing behind like a rabid beast hungry for a meal, the laughter echoing, mocking them. They bolted into the thicket, branches slicing at their skin, but they couldn't slow down. The clearing melted behind them as eerie whispers faded back into the woods with a sinister promise of return, but they weren't safe yet. As they broke out of the trees, a new horror awaited them. A dilapidated cabin stood ominously in a clearing, its dark windows like empty eyes set against the grim horizon. "Mommy, what now?" Jack's tiny voice shook, uncertainty creeping back in. Just hold on tight," she said, dread pooling in her stomach. "We need to see if anyone is there, anyone who can help us." And as they inched toward the cabin, the door creaked open, revealing a shadowy figure within. At the threshold of despair, who or what awaited them next? The cabin loomed before them, darker than the night, a monstrous entity alive with shadows. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, each beat echoing her frantic thoughts. Jack clung to her side, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. But they had no choice, it felt intangible, inevitable. "We can't stay out here," she whispered, more to herself than her son. "We'll find help inside." With a shaky breath, she stepped over the threshold, every creak of the floorboards resonating like a death knell. The darkness consumed them, wrapping tightly like a cold embrace. The air inside was stale, heavy with the scent of neglect. As her eyes adjusted, they fell on the figure in the corner, a man hunched over an old table, face obscured in shadow. The flickering of a solitary candle cast faint light, revealing the outlines of broken furniture and cobwebs that draped the room. "Who is there?" Sarah's voice was tense, quivering. The figure turned, revealing a scraggly beard and a pair of piercing blue eyes that seemed both haunted and wise. It was Mr. Holt, a local legend in their town, known to spin tales of strange happenings in the woods. "You've come," he rasped, his voice rough and cracked like the aged wood surrounding them. "You felt the calling, Haven to. What calling?" She pressed, desperation twisted her stomach into knots. "My son, he is in danger. We need to the Whistler, he wants your boy," Mr. Holt interrupted, his gaze boring into hers. "The essence of youth is irresistible to it. It's the sacrifice the forest demands." Jack shivered, clutching Sarah's hand as she fought against the surge of helplessness. "No, he won't take my son. There's a way to reclaim him." His words cracked open a glimmer of hope, but she felt the weight of dread clawing back at her. "What do we have to do?" she asked, heart pounding. "Face the darkness head on. Embrace it," he exhorted, rising slowly. "Only by embracing your fears can you sever the ties that bind Jack to that insatiable thing." The shadows in the cabin thickened, and a frigid gust swept through, sending a shiver down her spine. "I don't understand," Sarah stammered, but the idea started to force its way into her mind. Could it be true? Could she confront the horror that sought to claim her son? "Close your eyes," Mr. Holt instructed, stepping closer, eyes glinting in the gloom. "Feel the darkness as it wishes to consume you. You must be willing to sacrifice everything for him." "Everything," she echoed, heartache flooding her veins. Yet, as she looked at Jack, resolve set it. "I am ready." Then let go. His voice trailed off, intertwining with the whispering winds that surged through the cabin. Trembling, Sarah closed her eyes and focused on the darkness, the chill that wrapped around her like a cloak. "I'm here, Jack. I'm not afraid." The shadows coiled around her, a living, breathing entity, curling around her limbs and tightening, digging into her skin. A sinister laugh echoed through the cabin, and she took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain steady. "I will fight. I will not let you take him." "Foolish mortal," the Whistler's voice reverberated, chilling her to the bones. "You think you can conquer me, but I am the shadows of all lost hope. You take on a darkness you do not fully comprehend." Images flashed through her mind: Jack's laughter, the warmth of his little hands, the love that bore her weight in countless burdens. She let each memory fill her heart, let it become impossible to lose. "Jack!" she shouted, voice soaring through the shadows. "Fight with me." She felt a tug at her heart as if Jack's spirit entwined with hers. Every part of her screamed to turn away from the vast nothingness beckoning. "We're stronger than this. You will not take us." The Whistler howled, an enraged stream of sound that reverberated through the musty air. The shadows strained, pressing down, forcing her resolve to the brink. Yet, she felt a spark of light. Just a single flicker in the depth of the overwhelming darkness. "Hold on, Jack," she urged, feeling their connection brighten. "Stay with me." As if in response, Jack's laughter blossomed within her heart, a resonant beam of defiance. "Mommy. I'm here. I'm fighting." Suddenly it clicked. The chaotic shadows surged, but her newfound strength pushed back. They were drawing power from her love. Harnessing the very essence that made them unbreakable. With one last surge of will, she tightened her grip on that golden heart, letting it burst forth from her very being. "Let us go," she cried, thrusting forward through the veil of darkness, arms stretched wide. Like a beacon of light piercing through the cold abyss, she felt the shadows shudder, rippling away. The cabin trembled violently as the darkness roiled against her strength. With a final anguished shriek, the Whistler twisted, retreating back into its own realm, ejected by the light of a mother's love. "Jack! Come to me!" In a heartbeat, they were enveloped in a radiant glow, shining brighter than anything she had ever seen. Jack appeared, his form shimmering, eyes bright with clarity, innocence reclaimed. "Mom!" he exclaimed, and together they broke through, emerging from the suffocating void. The world erupted around them, blazing sunlight pouring down, illuminating the depths of the woods. The trees stood still, no longer looming giants but sturdy friends. Relief washed over Sarah, enveloping them in warmth, a clear sign that the evil had been vanquished. Did we win?" Jack asked, bewildered but safe, standing tall beside her. "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered, pulling him close, tears glimmering in her eyes. "We won together, my love." But even as they embraced, a chill crept through the air, an echo of laughter lingering in the shadows. The Whistler was defeated for now, but darkness had a way of scheming, always lurking just below the surface. "Let us go home," she said, holding Jack's hand tightly as they turned to leave. The path before them opened like a promise, and as they stepped onto it, Sarah knew this wasn't the end. They had a lifetime of battles ahead, not just against darkness outside but within as well. But she was ready to face it all. Together, and as they vanished from sight, a ghostly whisper lingered in the air. "We will see you again." It would never truly end, but love would illuminate every step of their journey. Now, before you go, here is something crucial: you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending, and do not wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. The time is now.